Hello folks, welcome back to Allergic to Stupidity, and it's Political Sundays. It's on a Monday, I'm going to be honest, but it's for my Sunday. But yesterday was so nice and so gorgeous, and so I just had to spend the whole day outside and then curled up with a good book in the evening. Okay, so Political Sundays, the elections happened. We're aiming on about exactly the final counts, and that's what brings me to today. A couple of the far-right Canadian sites I watched just to get other people's perspective has come up with conspiracy theories that just make me laugh. That the Liberals think the election was stolen. Well, I'm a Liberal, and no, we don't think the election was stolen. But the reason the gentleman in question is saying, oh, they believe it's been stolen, and that's literally this tone of voice, was because there were multiple writings that there were recounts on. And so he just took that leap of faith and said, well, obviously they think it's been stolen, because why else would they have it recounted? Well, for somebody who has worked the elections, as the person who's handed you the ballot, and the person who's crossing out the name, I've worked both positions, there is very strict guidelines on how to do this. And then it came to me as one of my evening clients, I showed up at his house, he was all excited because he had just worked that election. And he said, oh my God, that was phenomenal. That was so cool to do it. He said, do you have any idea how secure that is? I went, oh yeah, because I've done it. And he was rhyming off some of the things. So first of all, once you're in line, even if it's closed, like if the end of voting has come, if you are in line and inside the building, you still get to vote. We can't kick you out. You're in there. But once that closing time happens, the doors are locked. Like literally, the person in charge of that whole site locks the doors. And he only lets those people out that are voters until all the counting is done. You can't leave till the counting is finished. That's step one. Step two, when you go up and people say, well, I know, one of the conspiracy things was they know who voted for who. Okay. As somebody who's voted all her adult life, you walk up, you show your ID, it's crossed off. Like literally, we are given rulers and pens to cross these people's names out so you can't vote twice. And once it's crossed out, once you've verified that the person who's in front of you can vote, is legally allowed to vote at that address, then you are given the ballot. And the ballot comes all folded up, depending on the size of the ballot. Usually it's in thirds. Sometimes it's a little more because there might be a whole lot of candidates. You'll notice there's a little tab down that side. And then you go over, you mark your little X, and then you come back and you give it back to the person who's been handing out the ballots. He then proceeds to rip that number off, hands you back your vote, and you put it in the box. Now, I will concede there's some people who gung-ho and they stick their ballot in the box with the number attached. Okay? They're not supposed to do that. You are supposed to hand it to them. They are supposed to rip that number off and give you back your ballot without a number. That way, there is no connection between your number, which is not connected to your address or your thingy. It just happens to be ballot 999 that you were given. But there is no way, because we don't write ballot 999 next to your name anyways, but ripped off, that number is just thrown in a bin with the rest of them, and you put your ballot in it. So if somebody forgets to take the number off and they get gung-ho and they throw it in the box, there's still no way for us to connect that ballot with you anyways. So that's step one. So, and this is what this young man's going. He said, there's no way I could know who gave what ballot. I'm like, no. No. And he said, then once all the ballots are, everybody's voted, the doors are locked and you can't leave. And then the ballots are opened up. In the first thing in the morning, we have to show the guy who's running the whole site that the box is sealed. We just can't say it's sealed. He comes around and checks every single poll to make sure that that box that you're putting your ballots in is sealed. End of discussion. The end of the night, when it's time to vote, he comes around and makes sure that it was still sealed at the end of the day. And then the person who actually was giving out the ballot, who's in charge of that poll, he literally opens it up, dumps all the ballots out, and shows everybody there that the box is empty. Because we don't want to miss a ballot, right? And then they count them. And if they lift up one, and I'm just going to do this really quick. So you would say that that's the circle that you wanted. And maybe a guy goes slightly out of the box. Well, we've all heard this. We're supposed to stay inside the box. He will literally hold it up to anybody around. If he thinks there's any question about which person the person voted for, he will show it. And as he lifts it, he goes, yep. And he puts Liberal, NDP, Conservative, PPC, whatever, Green Party. And they put it in piles. At the same time, every party has a right to one scrutineer per poll. So I have literally been in polling stations where there's 5 or 6 or 7 polls all in a school gym. And there is 5 or 6 or 7 scrutineers per party walking around that gym. Now, lots of times, they can't get enough volunteers. But in the meantime, those scrutineers are sitting there watching us count them. Literally count them. And making sure we're not saying a liberal when it could be conservative. So there's another safety catch. Next, and this is where this guy is saying, oh, the Liberals think it's been stolen and blah, blah. He's trying to make something out of nothing. There was 5 or 6, I think there was more to be honest, but I can think of 5, where the count was so close that Election Canada, by regulations, needs to recount it. So even if I'm sitting there and I've got 51 for the Liberals and 50 for the Conservatives, I will recount right then and there without hesitation. Guys, let's redo this. This is too close. It's within 1 or 2. And we will recount. We want to make sure our count is right. So in these cases of these votes, of these polling, these ridings, one of them was recounted. It was out in BC, and it was automatically, okay, what happens is, if it's under a certain amount, so if candidate 1 and candidate 2 are within less than 50 votes, it's an automatic recount by Elections Canada. We don't have a choice. And it's not us, poll clerks, that are doing it. It's literally sent to the regional office, and they are recounting them themselves. And that's if it's under 50. Or if the scrutineers feel there is a need for them to recount it. So there is one that right now has been won by the Conservatives, but the Liberal scrutineers on several of the polls said they questioned a lot, not 1 or 2, but a lot of the rejected ballots, that they felt it was definitive of which way it should have gone, and therefore they would like a recount. They just felt that people were rejecting ballots too easily. And so that one is 77 votes for the Conservative over top the Liberal candidate. Okay? So that one is the scrutineers in the Liberal Party asking for it to be recounted. The other 3, the top 2s were less than 50. That's an automatic recount. And the example is the guy in it's a woman in downtown Montreal, when they did the recount and they pulled up the rejected ballots, it was things like this, where you can see I went just outside the circle, and somebody said that's reject because it's outside the circle. And when they did the recount, because Elections Canada demanded it, because it was less than 50 between the 2, it flipped and became a Liberal riding. She won by 1 vote. That's why you should vote. But it's that picky, and they recounted it twice to make sure everything is accurate. There's 2 others, again, recounted by Elections Canada's standards. And right now they're both Liberal seats, and they're recounting them to make sure it should stay as a Liberal seat, because that's what the people of the riding wanted. Now, The only other one, and this is the one where the scrutinists were questioning a lot of the rejected. They weren't saying that people had pushed them onto conservatives and going to question the validity of why all the ones that were rejected has the conservatives ahead by 77. So even if that poll flips, which I really don't think it's going to, the Liberals will still be a minority government. They'll have 171. Oh, so close. But they will. That is how specific and how exacting and how to the T standards we have for Canadian elections. And if you're in a place like a school gym where there's 5 or 6 polls, nobody's leaving until all the polls are closed and counted. And the person who's head of that whole school's unit has okayed everybody. Guys, this isn't. And people have said, well, people could erase them. Okay, good luck on that. But what a lot of the polls did when that conspiracy started, they just left pens and pencils. Pick and choose which one you want. But if you ever tried to erase a pencil, as a teacher who's been marking for a very long time, good luck. You can erase it, but you can still tell. And anything, it's just not going to happen. And if you, as a voter, mark your ballot and go, shit, that's not who I wanted, you simply take it back to the poll clerk and say, I made a mistake, I need a new ballot. Okay, that's fine. They take your ballot, they put it in an envelope as error, and they give you a new ballot. Then, right, that's it. So all those lovely conspiracies here, I've got a couple of right-wing blogs that I occasionally listen to just to get where they're coming from. And that one came out last week, and I was like, oh, guys, if you honestly believe that, then you had never worked one of these elections. I've worked provincials, I've worked federals. Trust me. No, you're not going to. Next, if you don't like any of your candidates, and I'm not joking because it's happened, either walk in, show your ID, receive the ballot, and hand it right back to the person who gave you the ballot. And he will ask you, do you want to vote? Are you rejecting to vote? And you just say, yes, I do not want to vote. And he will rip it off, and you can throw your blank ballot in the box. End of discussion. Now, that one, what I would do is what my son has done is he literally just took a marker, took his pencil, and went right through all of them. And then obviously it's rejected because which one did you want, right? And that's all he did and handed it back. He didn't like any of the candidates in our riding. That's fine. Please, people, think twice when you listen to these conspiracy theories, because our election system is one of the best in the world, and it's secure. Nobody's cheating. But get out and vote. We have done that. Anyways, there you go. That's my Sunday's Political Sunday. I hope everybody had a good weekend. You will notice I'm not on as much these days. That's simply because the weather's so nice. I'm out in my yard. My body's feeling it. I'm having a really lovely time. Take care, guys. We'll see you next time.